There you go.
Where am I at?
Good morning.
Good morning. Hey, I am going to be a quick on to say hi to everybody today. I've got one more mile to walk, a shower to take, an open house, la 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 la. So,
well, awesome.
So I was like, well, I was trying to log in at 8:15 this morning, and I tried all the day. I was like, I can't get in here. What's the deal? Were we on at 8:15 this morning, or am I just used to doing it?
Not on Saturdays, no.
It'll sink in eventually. I'm like, dang it, I can't get in there.
No, just Monday through Friday.
I'm like, what a dork. I am telling you, I'm a dork. I was like, maybe I went back and looked for last Saturday. I was like, were we on there last Saturday?
No, not there. Sometimes I see you and I'll pop in, but I wasn't even on my computer at 8:15 this morning.
I got up early. My boys left. They went out of town. So I was like, I'm getting up, say bye to my boys. And the only bad thing with the open house, I hate driving the truck, and I have to drive the truck so they could save gas mileage. I was like, oh. But I'll live.
Well, at least it's not slick yet. It will be later today, but
I know. So I was like, thank goodness, let's go do this. And we've got a showing there. I've got my new listing. Yay! Woo-woo. Yay! My new listing. She wanted to wait till Monday for showings. She's like, I've got to work. She goes, I usually don't work weekends, but she is working today and tomorrow. So I said, we'll block the schedule. I've had call after call. We've got so many. I bet that creates a little bit of anxiety too, which is really kind of cool. It is. And she wants to pack up and move to Florida is what she wants. So I think, did I tell you she had an investor offer like 110 for the house? And yeah, said, we're only going to give her like where that ends up. That'll make a great story. Oh, yeah. All right. Well, everybody's popping in, and since Cheryl's got to go quick, I'm going to launch the poll this week, so you guys can start filling in your poll for the week. Now and the end of February. How many listings? Oh, that's the wrong poll. Hang on, that's last week's poll. Hang on. Why did it let me do that? Hang on. That's not what was supposed to happen. I don't think I've met Josie yet. Well, Josie, introduce yourself. Yeah, okay, that's the right one. All right, there you go. So are we supposed to stick with the same number, or can we adjust it? There you go. Well, if you want to adjust it, you can adjust it, only upwards. Okay. Well, this is only the 6th, isn't it? Yeah. It is? Yeah. All right. So fill in your numbers in the survey while we're waiting for everybody to get on. I'll get better with the polling. I think it's fun. Good morning, Jay. How you doing this morning?
Good morning. I'm doing okay.
You're still okay?
Just doing what I do.
All right. I'm just trying to do what I do. I'm just making sure every morning that you feel okay.
Yeah, I think my neck hurts for sleeping too much.
If you got the COVID, I tell you what, even if you feel not too bad, you're tired. I'm telling you. I was like, I gotta take a nap.
Yeah, that's been going on. Been a little bit more tired, but besides that, nothing.
Well, that's lucky.
They're very lucky. That's what I'm saying. I think this is a total different reason why I have COVID for a whole different reason.
You got it for a gift.
Yep.
Well, that's not a not so nice gift, is it? Or
it's a silver linings kind of thing.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's some extra stuff going on.
I gotcha.
Yeah. I've been set down by a higher power for this reason. So
yeah. Well, fortunately, so far you haven't been too sick. So
no, I'm just chilling, really.
Awesome. Hey guys, I'm gonna go finish my stuff. I'm gonna do an open house. Facebook Live is debatable at this point, but we'll see what happens today.
Oh no! Whoa! Why?
She's like, no, you're not going anywhere.
No. Why debatable? Why is Facebook Live debatable? You don't get to say that and leave. Sorry.
that leaves you guys like, okay, we're gonna have to check and see if she did it or not.
I'm gonna come hunt you down if you're gonna tell me that Facebook Live is
137 First Street in Shelbyville, noon to 3 today. Come see me.
Well, I can't do that because I'll still be on the study group.
Exactly.
There's why would you not do an exam study group?
I'm sorry, what?
Why would you not do an exam study group?
Me?
Or not a, I mean, I'm sorry, I got that back feed. Why would you not,
A
why
Facebook
would you
Live?
not do a Facebook Live?
Because it's so nerve-wracking.
What's nerve-wracking about it? Jay, give her some tips.
Hearing my
It's
voice
fun.
on there. I don't mind doing the video. I just hate hearing my voice. And I have to remember the last time I was there, I said, spit your gum out before you do a Facebook Live because I'm always chewing gum. Always.
Do you want to get the most from your open house?
Right.
There's nothing
right.
wrong with chewing gum. It still sounds good. You're cool.
Carol, it's just like script practice. You sound dumb at first, but you practice and practice and practice, and it gets better, and you feel more comfortable about it.
Right.
Okay.
I don't know. Every time I hear my voice, I'm like, oh my gosh, could you put that volume down? And I have one volume and it's really loud. So
Well, you know, I feel like I sound like a dork too. So, I mean, it's like we just have to try to do it. Keep trying.
exactly.
But we have to remember why. Why are we doing a Facebook Live?
There's a purpose.
It's because that's what
There's a purpose.
Facebook rewards.
And honestly, my husband's cousin, we always just joke around with each other and kid around. I mean, he's done some things that I called him out for, and I probably said maybe more than I should have, but we always pick at each other. So the other day I said, I couldn't get on my business page. It kept going away. And he's like, it's because you post senseless stuff. And I just kind of gave him a birdie emoji. And I said, I know that wasn't very professional. I said, but the intent is so that you don't forget what my line of profession is. I'm a professional real estate agent. I said, so as long as you remember, I'm good with whatever you got to say about that. So, anyway, I'll try to do Facebook.
All right. Well, I can't wait to see your Facebook Live.
Okay. Everybody have a good day.
We're
You
all going to be
too.
looking for it.
Awesome. Bye, guys.
Bye. All right. Did everybody see the poll? Can you fill out the poll? Everybody filled out the poll? Guess I need to not be Chad. I better change my name. You guys will start thinking I'm Chad. All right. Let's see where we are. Has everybody filled in the poll? All right. Let's see what the results are. All right. That's really tiny. Can you guys see that? How many listings do you have now in the end of February? Most of you want to have one. Okay. Were you intentional last week about getting appointments? 63% of you were yes. Awesome. Good job. All right. Who is not intentional last week about getting appointments? Anybody want to confess? Ask yourself this question. What stops yourself from being intentional about getting listings? What stops?
Actually, I think I was the one that hit no, but I forgot, honestly, that one of my new buyer opportunities, I did discuss with him a listing, so I guess I should have put yes. But so that was probably me.
All right. So 3 of you asked 1 time for a listing appointment last week. 1 of you asked 2 times. 2 of you asked 5 times, and 1 of you asked 6 times. So what's the best?
9.
And 1 of you asked 9 times. Woohoo! Who was
Good
that?
job.
Who asked for a listing appointment 9 times last week?
It's probably Cheryl. She's gone.
That was me.
That was
Was you?
Armand. Awesome.
Good job.
Armand. All right.
Intentional in every conversation. I even hit up my plumber yesterday when he was here.
Fabulous. All right. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how intentional you were in securing listing appointments. And I've got a 1 and a 2. So those of you that picked 1 and 2, how important do you think it is to your business that you get listings?
10.
10. It's very important, right? Leads, listings, leverage. Those are the 3 keys to being successful in real estate.
Let me share with everybody something that you know that you might not be realizing right at the moment with the question. The listing is more important than getting a buyer. The reason being is usually when you get a listing, you also get a buyer.
Yeah.
That's right. Or more than one buyer, right? You might, with a listing, you might get more than one buyer. You might get your listing and you might get your seller has to have moved somewhere. So that might be another buy. And you might get a sign call, right? You might get somebody that drove by and saw and didn't have a realtor and you get a sign call and that's not the right house for them, or it is, or, you know, you help them with that. So what can we do, everyone? Because the highest we've got 6 here. What can we do to be more intentional about securing listing appointments?
Continue to ask for the business.
Or ask for the business if we haven't asked, right? Have you guys all, I know I didn't email it out yet and I need to do that, but they put that, I think Autumn emailed it out to those of you in the South office, and on the KW, on the Indy Metro training site, the Ben Kinney recording is there. And if you haven't watched the Ben Kinney recording this weekend, sometime, find an hour and listen to that. It is going to be, it is amazing. And it is a free gift. We don't get free gifts like that very often. So please don't miss the opportunity to watch that. When we get done today, when I send out the recording for this, I will send out the link for that. But remember that he says that if you want to have a listing, you have to ask for it. You have to, don't assume that they're not a seller, right? So every person that you meet, you have to assume that they might be a potential seller. And for those of you that are calling internet leads, you know, he says, hey, you know, thanks for reaching out on Facebook and asking for more information. I find that most people are either looking at ads because they want to see how much their home is worth, because they might want to sell, or they're interested in buying. Which one are you? Right now, you've, you know, planted the seed, and you haven't assumed that they were a buyer just because they clicked on an ad, right? We go back to the neighborhood farming that we've been doing, or calling our sphere. This is the same script one way or the other when we call our sphere or we call the neighborhood. And it is just, hey, I wanted to make sure that you knew what was going on in the market right now. Do you know? Right? Ask them a question. Let them tell you they don't know and pique their curiosity. If you pique their curiosity, are they more likely to have a conversation with you than if you just tell them what it is that you want to tell them? You're going to talk at them or talk to them or talk with them, right? We want to talk with them. We want to engage with them. So ask them a question. Ask them if they know what's going on in the market. If they say no, then ask them another question. Well, do you know what the current interest rate is right now? Right? Don't just tell them what the current interest rate is. Tell them. Ask them if they know what's happening with the inventory right now. And they're going to say no. And then you can tell them, right? But let them know that you have something that they don't know. And if you just spill it all out for them, then they're not. So that should be the way your cadence goes with your conversation with people. You're being more intentional, right? The other thing that I love that Ben Kinney said, and I'm going to keep saying it to you for a little while, is that we tell them what we do for them. You know, I'm a real estate agent. Do you know what I can do for you? I can help you manage your wealth in real estate. Get them start thinking about that real estate is their wealth, right? Isn't that where most people have their wealth? It's like a forced savings account, isn't it? Because they build equity in their home every time they make a mortgage payment. They may not be able to put money in a savings account, but they are building wealth when they own real estate. All right, well, today I want to talk more about listings. We have to focus on this, right? This is so critical to your business. Even if you prefer to work with buyers, like Armand said, we want to have listings because they're going to generate buyers for us. I also have Allison from Title Alliance is going to pop on at some point this morning, and she is going to walk us through their app, and we're going to talk about seller net sheets today. Yes, Armand.
If I could say one more thing.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of listings, okay, if you do it right and you're going to go around in the neighborhood that you got your listing sign out in front of, which by the way is free advertising. You do some more free advertising in the sense that you're going to be walking around anyway. Hand out flyers. That's one of the best advertisements of both yourself, your business, and the fact that you're a professional realtor. Okay.
You're also showing your sellers what you're going to be able, what you would do for them, you know, your potential sellers, what you would do for them as well to sell their home. Kenneth isn't on here today, but he had an epiphany yesterday that I want to share since he's not on here to share with you, because I thought it was brilliant. So he is calling the neighborhood calls, but this pretty much applies to any call that you make except for your sphere, which hopefully you wouldn't have to do this for your sphere. But so he calls the phone number, and then they don't answer, right? And he leaves a message. Or when he very first started this, it wasn't because it was because they wouldn't accept a message, right? It said the voicemail was full or whatever. So he sent a text message and said, "I'm trying to reach Joe Smith. Is this the correct number?" And he said 100% of the time when he does that, he gets a text back. And if it's the wrong number, then he knows, right? And if it's the right number, then he calls it, because now they want to know who you are, right? Don't they want to know who you are? Because you've just you've just piqued their interest. Again, back to like asking questions. Now they're more likely to answer when you call because they want to know who you are and you took that extra step. So I wanted to throw that out there. I think that applies in so many different, that applies if you're following up on internet leads, if you're following up on all kinds of things. And, you know, when we call them and they find out who we are, they say we have the wrong number, right? But if you just send a message and say, "I'm trying to reach thus and so, is this the right number?" The chances of them not being honest with us are slimmer, right? And why would they tell us we have the wrong number when we call and they find out who we are?
Because they just don't want to talk to anyone, or they don't want to have any sales calls.
Yeah, think about me in the car lot, right?
Yeah.
I go to the car lot on Sundays because there's no people there. I have to buy a car, right? So I have to eventually buy a car, and I will eventually buy a car. I'm just not ready in that particular moment. So if you catch them in the not particular moment that they're not ready, then their chances are they're going to tell you it's not the right number. But if you send them a text message and you say, "Hey, I'm trying to reach Jim Smith. Is this the right number?" And they message back, "Yes." And then we call them, right? They want to find out who we are. And what can they not tell us now?
That is not the right number.
This is not the right number. So we took one objection off the table, right? And then we say something like what Ben Kenny says here, you know, "Are you a seller or a buyer? Which are you?" And if they say, "Well, you know, I'm a buyer, but not for a while down the road," now we know, right? We put them in our opportunity at wherever they are down the road. But it's about figuring out how to help people, right? If somebody would figure out how, well, this is what happened. I bought a car, right? I'm still not crazy about it, but I bought a car. But somebody helped me. I now have a son-in-law that's going to fix this problem for me, right? So he took care of everything for me. And all I had to do last Friday was show up and pick up my car.
Aw,
Oh, congratulations.
No,
sweet.
thanks. I want my old car back.
What kind of car did you have?
I had an old Mercedes.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
An old diesel Mercedes that was getting ready to cost me a lot because Mercedes repairs are really expensive.
They sure are.
And so now I have a Hyundai Santa Fe.
Okay. Those are nice.
It's all right. It tried to kill me on Friday, but that's a whole other story.
Okay.
Is that with the driver assist?
Yes, the driver assist had to go away. I thought it was going to make me drive into a semi.
Yes, because that was the first thing I had to figure out was how to turn it off.
That was horrible. Yes, it was horrible. I called the salesperson in tears, and he hopped in the demo and gave me a video on how to turn it off. It was awful. All right. Okay, so Allison's going to come and help us with seller net sheets. Who does seller net sheets for their sellers when they go out to do their listing appointment? Tamika does. How do you do your seller net sheets, dear?
Oh, Chicago title site.
Chicago title. Okay.
Mhm.
Keisha, how do you do yours?
I was taught on Meridian Title.
Awesome. Well, Allison's going to come. They have an app, and it's really pretty cool, and it makes it pretty much on the fly. So she's gonna come show us the app, and then she's gonna talk to us just a little bit about title and what we need to know in case there's anything that we don't know about. So that's gonna be today. And then we're going to talk about listing presentations. That's where we're going to start this morning. So how did you guys do? Did everybody get their listing presentation prepared? Anne has not. Anne, are you in the supported model?
I am.
Jessica does that for you.
Yeah, I requested it.
Oh, good. Okay.
I'm they're just real busy because, you know, there's a couple things that they were supposed to tell me. I just
But we
haven't.
still should know how to do it, though.
Yeah, you still should know how to do it, but she's got another job, so she has a hard time fitting everything in. So that's the thing is that's leverage, right? Those are the 3 keys to success. Leads, listings, leverage, right? Leverage is using my leverage services, which is the concierge. Oh, look at Armand. He's all ready for football a day early.
Yeah, I agree. I do need to know how, but at this point, you know, anything that can help me get started until I have some time to learn, you know, I'm gonna go.
Well, and once they prepare it for you, they're doing it in Command and Design, so you'll be able to make adjustments to it yourself. All right, who else does not have their listing presentation prepared?
Mine's not completed with the edits you gave back, the comments you gave back to me yet, so. But it's in progress.
In progress. All right.
Hey, that's a good one. Mine's been in progress for a while.
You know how long it took.
I'm right there with you.
You know, so I've got one done, but it's probably not a good one. It's not.
Well, here's the thing, right? Once we do it, does that mean we can't ever change it? We can't. We can definitely change it. We can definitely update it. I mean,
it's just a basic one. I do have one, but it's my listing presentation and my buyer's presentation. I've got those done, but they're just basic. It's nothing.
What is the point of the listing presentation?
Just to get the listing and explain.
It's to get the listing, right? That's always our goal, is to get the contract signed, right? And also to help make sure that we are proactively preventing problems for ourselves down the line once we have it listed. So there's no misunderstandings, right? And so our sellers have some confidence in our ability, right? Those of you that are a brand new agent and you've not had a listing or a listing appointment, when you go into your listing appointment with this listing presentation, it is going to be a whole lot easier for you to present than if you try to do it ad lib off the cuff, right?
Does anybody need any help on doing the listing presentation? Here in Indianapolis, I'll sit down with anybody and help them with it. If you need help.
That's awesome. All right. I'm gonna put you guys out into breakout rooms for just a little bit and let you walk through the beginning of the listing presentation. So does everybody have it? You don't have yours? Can you pull it up? Pull it out?
I printed it.
Who doesn't have one? Can you go into designs and pull up one?
Yeah, there is one under designs. Designs is in Command in the left side of left column, left index. And it's about 2/3 of the way down. It's pencil and the pad. Sorry, Carla, but
Does everybody find one? How are you going to be able to do a listing presentation and get the listing if you can't practice doing the listing, right? You have to practice. We got to remember that. I mean, Ben Kenny said that I know I keep saying it, but it was the most amazing thing this week. He's 17 years in the business and makes, I don't know, I don't even know how many millions of dollars every year. And he practices every day, right? We have to practice our skills so that we can get good. Do you think that the players that are playing tomorrow in the football game haven't been practicing? I imagine they'd even do a little bit of practice today. Don't you think maybe they're going to practice today right before the big game? All right, I guess nobody can tell me this. If I put you, I'm a little worried. Terrell, are you on with us this morning? Are you going to practice?
I want to try. I have the twins with me right now, so double
Okay.
duty.
How about you, Josie? Are you working or can you talk? Are you practicing with us this morning?
I was trying to find the listing presentation. Sorry, you asked me a question earlier and I wasn't able to unmute my computer because I wasn't edit. I have my AirPods in, but yeah, I can listen in and practice. I'm trying to pull
Okay.
up that presentation though.
I just want to make sure when I put you guys in breakout rooms, it doesn't end up with a room with one person and the other people aren't.
I am listening right now because I'm stepping away. I'm kind of back and forth right now, but I am listening.
All right, Robert, how about you? Are you talking this morning?
Yes.
Awesome. All right. I'm gonna put you guys out. And I will pull you back in here shortly. If Allison gets here, it may be short, and if not, we may have a little bit more time, but I will let you know. I'll warn you before I come. So do the first part. Like, it's a long presentation. There's 3 of you in a room. So you want to just like do the first part, like do 2 or 3 minutes and then let the next person go. And then, just let's get this perfected. All right, there you go. Are you going? Is it taking you?
Oh,
Thinking about it? We just sit here and look at each other.
Again, it's going to ask what type of a loan it is because we have different fee setups, primarily a difference between a mortgage transaction versus a cash transaction. So the FHA and the VA aren't necessarily going to change on our end, but you would indicate what type of a transaction it is. And then from there, you are able to edit who is responsible for some of those fees. So again, we've worked with the app developers to only allow the option to toggle those features on the items that are actually worthy of negotiation within the contract. So again, the escrow fee, we can mark it as split for this particular one. By default, the seller is typically responsible for that title policy, for the owner's policy. And then that would change, obviously, if it is renegotiated somehow. So once you make those changes, then you can hit done and you can indicate whether or not that's what you want it to do moving forward so that you don't always have to go in and make that change, or you only just want it for this particular estimate. Okay, it should save the information then. And then from there, you can put in a sales price. Throw in a sales price of $195. It will ask what the broker fee is, and you can put in percentages or you can put in designated dollar amounts. So typically it's going to be roughly 3% on both sides. And again, you can edit it so that it saves it for future transactions, particularly if you're putting these together for listing appointments and you are always consistently charging the same rate, then you would be able to put those numbers in so that you don't manually have to enter that every time. If there are any seller concessions for repairs or closing costs or anything like that, you can put that here in this repairs box. And then miscellaneous is going to be where you would be able to add items such as a home warranty. Actually, it might have an option for that. There we go. Home warranty. Or if we're going to reduce for certain things, say a termite fee or something like that. Okay, so once you've added those, it does have an option. I kind of skipped over taxes and we'll come back to that, but it does have an option to estimate your seller's payoff. So if they know approximately, I still owe $80,000 on my house and my interest rate is 4%, then you can put in some numbers to try to calculate what that amount is if they don't know for sure. Otherwise, you can leave it blank and it will just take it out of consideration. In this particular case, we'll throw in just a kind of an arbitrary number. And then when it comes to calculating taxes, by default, for whatever reason, it goes to a percentage. And more often than not, you're going to know exactly what the dollar amount is that are taxes that are due each year. So if you change that toggle to the dollar amount and then put in whatever the annual amount is, again, annual amount, not semi-annual amount, then you're going to indicate whether or not taxes have already been paid for the spring and or fall installment. So you're hitting a check mark, excuse me, to indicate whether or not it's been paid. So it's a little confusing, I've heard from some agents, because you can see there's a grayed out check, but you actually have to click it to turn it blue in order to indicate whether or not it's been paid. And that will adjust the algorithm that's used in calculating how much that proration amount is that's calculated for the settlement statement. So in this particular case, all of last year's taxes would have more than likely already been paid. And then from there, we hit compute. And it will pull up this lovely little graph over here on the side that gives a basic overview of what your seller will be netting from the proceeds of that sale. You are able from there to be able to click on things like show me the details of the closing costs, and it will give you a breakdown of what those fees are. And my favorite part is when you can share or print. It will give you a lot of different options in the way that you're able to present that information then to your sellers. So if you know that you have a very visual seller that likes pretty graphs and, you know, symmetry on the page, things like that, that it'll give their lump sum total here at the top and then a breakdown of things here in the middle. Again, when you have the premium version of the app, it will allow you, notice how my picture is not up here. When you have a premium version, it will allow you to customize and add your image, add your logo, things like that, so that you can really show up as a power hitter, if you will, right there in front of your client. It will have specific information pertaining to the property on the estimate itself. And it does give you an option to either download or print from there. And bear with me because my screen's, there we go. From over here, you're able to share it to, you know, a social website. You can save it to be able to review with them later, print it, download it, and go from there. Email it directly from there. Anybody have questions over that in particular? Okay, if you receive multiple offers, then you also have the option right here. Apologize for my dog shaking in the background. You also have options to put in multiple offers. So you would be able to, this is the first one I put in. With a multiple offer, you would put in, say, you know, somebody offered $200,000, but they want me to pay all of their closing fees, we'll say. Property taxes should be the same. So we'll put in that they want, say, $3,000. Obviously, that's not what the closing costs are. But you can enter that information and then you'll be able to compare and contrast those two offers. I think I saved it. Nope, change the first one. There are so many features within this app that I really, truly just recommend playing with it. And you will quickly figure out how to be able to navigate and put in the things you are using most frequently. So from a title perspective, I'm not generating seller net sheets all of the time. I want to be able to help you to do that. And I am more than happy to provide my contact information. And I am always available by email and phone if you have questions, specifically if you're working on one and you need help to get it to be able to compute the way that you need it to. I've had some agents say that property taxes, if they don't seem correct, then we can kind of navigate through that step by step to figure out what can we click differently to make sure that that it is working the way that it's supposed to. Additionally, if you are noticing any inconsistencies, I work closely with the app development team to make sure that we can address those concerns, and anything moving forward that you're able to, that we're able to correct it so that it's not an ongoing issue. There are other calculators and things like that that are available within the app. You have rent versus buy features, even refinance options that it will calculate, again, what our company's fees are when it's putting together any sort of those types of estimates. So does anybody have questions about the app or anything in particular that you would like to see on it?
You want to show them real quick that, so it looks pretty similar, right? When you have from the buyer side.
Oh, yep, sorry. So
Yeah, that was my next question. For a buyer who wants to know how much their closing cost is going to be,
mhm.
the same process as plugging in the numbers?
Roughly, yes. So I'm just going to use the same property then here. So the seller was paying for the home warranty on that. It estimates homeowners insurance will be roughly 0.25%. If you know how much their premium is, you would be able to toggle that, put in an exact dollar amount. You know, maybe it's $1,200 for the year. The property taxes, again, we would put in the dollar amount for the year. And then we're indicating that both halves have already been paid. And then if there is an HOA, you can designate that amount in there as well, whether it's monthly or annually. And then you would put in that amount and it will know to compute any prorations for that. Let's see, look at see if there's, we'll make sure that we have a split closing fee. Again, it's going to estimate here with the prepaid costs as far as if property taxes have already been paid, approximately how many months they think of insurance will be collected from the new buyer at closing, approximately how many months of taxes will need to be used to set up the initial escrow account. And down here we had a split fee. The buyer will be paying their own title policy. Somehow I'm drawing on my screen. I'm not sure how I'm doing that. And then we're going to hit compute and it should generate, yes, the exact same type of a document that gives them a visual of what they would need to bring to close, approximately how much their monthly payment would be, details pertaining to their loan, things like that. And so then you have the option again, where you're able to share or print PDF. You can pull up detailed closing costs if you want and go that route. Now, what I will say, one of my favorite features about this is that, for instance, if your buyer says, I cannot afford to pay $1,000 a month, I can only afford $950 a month. You can actually work backwards and you could change this to say, I can only afford $950. Done. And then it will work in reverse to tell you if that's the case, then you need to come up with X number of dollars more at closing in order for your payment to be able to do that. So we do have some buyers that are very number savvy when it comes to that. And they are really negotiating down to the end with their lender in particular to say, well, I don't really want to have to pay that amount over the course. Is it worth it for me to put down an additional amount? And so you really can navigate through this backwards to help them get to where they need to be. Did that answer your question? Okay. Anybody else have questions?
Well, we've been talking about listings this month. This is Loving on Listings Month for February. And so one of the things that I wanted to talk about is the reason why we pre-order title. Is that something you can talk to?
Absolutely.
I know it's not app related, but I just thought,
That's fine. We personally love when title is pre-ordered just because it allows us to see any red flags that are on a property earlier than later. Particularly if you have a contract that comes in and they want to close quickly, and then all of a sudden we run title, find out that there are judgments on title, or that we have a lender that's not very cooperative in giving out payoffs, things like that, that the sooner that we have the information pertaining to your seller, the more prepared that we can be moving forward to make sure that you are just ready to hit the ground running, that no buyer is going to have to wait on you or your seller to be able to get to the closing table sooner than later, because we will already have had that information made available to us. And that information can quickly be made available by you to any buyers that are or any buyer's agents that are trying to make a contract on that property. So you will already have a pre-service title commitment in your hand that shows, look, there's no open liens on this property, or I can prove to you that there's just the one mortgage and that there's nothing else going on. And to be able to have all of that at your disposal just makes you more prepared, and really able to, I guess, help drive the direction of where the transaction is going to go. Because a lot of times you're going to have buyers that they have the option, right, where they can select where title is going to go to. And if you're able to say, look, I've already had the pre-service done on this, we've already done the title search and we're ready to go. So it's going to help if we just keep it in-house and we stay here, then you'll just be extra prepared, if you will. And again, if we run into issues, so say for instance, I have one that's closing its cash transaction and we have an out of the country buyer and they want to move very, very fast on it. Well, there was a judgment that showed up and the seller is, pleading with me that I don't know anything on this. And I believe her because her name is a very common name. So sometimes that will happen, that a name that is similar to that of your seller will show up and there may be multiple judgments against that person. So just looking at names that I can see on the screen, J. Hill would be a common name that may pop up judgments. That does not mean that they're applicable to you, but that affords us the time that if you provide us with information pertaining to your J. Hill, then we can clear all of that way ahead of time. So that when a contract comes in, you can say all of that's already been resolved. We don't have to worry about any of that moving forward because we know that those don't pertain to my particular transaction. So yes, always a good idea to do pre-service.
and if the buyer, it ends up becoming a negotiating piece with the buyer, it's still not going to be an issue for the seller if you pre-ordered title and the buyer's insisting on a different
Right.
company, correct?
Correct. And I mean, that's certainly something too, where you have it as a tool for you that you can move forward to that other title company if necessary, and feel confident that things have already been resolved. We are always more than happy to assist in that process in the event that any of that information needs to be transferred over.
Do you have any preferences you want to share with the agents of what you'd like to see when they order title, pre-order title, what they can do to make things easier for you guys?
Well, everybody is a Keller Williams agent, is that correct?
Everybody's a Keller Williams agent.
Okay.
And everyone's in Indianapolis except for Shelley.
So when you order a pre-service title, then we basically need to know the names of the sellers and the address of the property. From there, we can pull all kinds of information. But if you just send us an address and then we have to try to figure out who we think the seller is based on public record and maybe something else has changed hands, that helps us to sort of jump through those hoops early. So the name and the address are going to be big. And then it's important because we have an affiliated business arrangement with Keller Williams, that there should be what's called an ABA disclosure in all of your Keller Williams handbooks, that you can have your clients sign that and say that they are okay with Title Alliance moving forward, because that's a legal hoop that we have to jump through basically.
Allison, do you only need that with the South KW office, or does the North and the West offices also have to do that?
So it is anyone affiliated with the Indy Metro South office.
Okay. So the North office or the West office could order a title with Title Alliance and not have to do the disclosure.
Correct.
Awesome.
Okay.
Anybody else have title questions for Allison? Well, thank you so much for coming and spending this nice balmy Saturday morning with us.
Not a problem. And like I said, I'm happy to share any of my information. So if anybody reaches out to you and they want contact information for us, or for me specifically pertaining to the app, just let me know and I will reach out with them.
Allison, I send an email out with the recording and everything at the end. So I'll just include your contact information on that email to everyone. Even the people that couldn't join us this morning, that way, if they watch the recording, they can jump back in.
Okay. Sounds perfect.
Thank you so much. Have a nice
time.
Stay warm.
All right. Thank you.
All right. So I don't know if everybody saw chat, but I just want to tell you that Angela needs someone to do a showing in Greenfield today at 1:30. She says she's paying by PayPal or something else. I don't know. Something I've never heard of, because I'm not very techie when it comes to that. But if anybody is interested in helping her, I put her cell phone number in the chat.
I sent her a message, just waiting to see if she replies.
Awesome. She's at work, so.
Okay. So,
Yeah, I
I'm
sent
just
her a
waiting.
message as well.
Awesome. All right. Good
We'll
job.
see what
Thank
she
you, guys.
picks.
Well, you know, who knows? I mean, I while she was talking, I was trying to send it out to people. So she, you know, it's one of those things. First, you never know who gets there first.
First come, first serves, yeah. Whoever
Yeah.
sent it
All
first.
right. What do you guys think about that app? I think
It's
it's
very
pretty cool.
interesting and helpful.
I think even if Title Alliance isn't the title company that you choose to use, that you still have access to the app and the website, and it makes a really nice, easy seller net sheet. I mean, there are lots of other tools, and I know we mentioned that Chicago and Lakeisha has a different title company, Meridian, or somebody that she uses, and that's fine. I just I thought it would be helpful just to see the app. It's something that you can create on the fly. So, all right, well, let's go back to the listing agreement. And I know that this looks different for us than it does for Shelley, but I'm sure that the listing agreement in Kentucky still has similar issues. So I think we'll be all right. All right, so we're back to, we know, so now we're comfortable. We know who the party is, right? We know who the seller is. Do we feel good about that? No more questions on the seller?
Nope, good.
Awesome. All right. So then we're going to say that the seller appoints the broker, right, for the property. And then we got to be specific about what the property is. Does everybody know where to get the legal description? Somebody tell me, where do you get the legal description?
Or you can get it from a copy of the deed, or you can get it from, usually like here locally, I think it's Beacon. You can get it from, where you can check taxes.
Yeah.
You just go on the MLS, where the address is, and click on the property tax and scroll down, and there it'll be right there.
Right. And it's also on Realist, right? Realist is on your home screen for MyBor, and that gets you better. I think Realist, and I know you come from a law firm, and the Beacon is an easy way to get there, although they don't do very good with Marion County. I recommend using Realist, which is on your home screen of your thing. So in your BLC, you're going to have what Robert's talking about. If the property has been previously sold and was ran through the MLS, right? If it wasn't, it's not going to be in the main MLS. You're going to have to go to Realist to get the information. But you want to have the legal description, and you want to make sure, just like you do with your purchase agreement, that you have the full legal description. A lot of times, if you just copy it off the BLC sheet, you don't get like the lot number and all of that, because the agent that input it didn't get the full thing. So you need to make sure you get the full legal description. Now the contract begins on, and this is either the date the property is going to list or the date of the contract. And we'll talk about that a little bit more at length. And then we're going to have an expiration date. And I recommend that you put that out. Robert, tell them about your little situation right now with your client that wants to take their listing off the market and then do some renovations.
Okay, so yeah, with that situation, so my client, he was gonna list and was gonna sell it for a certain price, and then he actually got offers for the price, and people wanted to buy it, but then he changed it, and he was like, you know what, I want to just, cause it was an investment property, he wants to just invest it itself and rehab it itself. So we withdrew it from the market for 30 to 60 days, and then once the rehab is over, I'm gonna put it back on the MLS, and we're gonna sell it for the higher price.
So he still has a listing agreement in place while he's doing this. So I recommend that Robert do is extend the expiration date of the listing agreement, because you don't want it to show up as an expired. What happens when it shows up as expired?
They get all kinds of phone calls.
All the agents, right, that call expireds, call them. So we don't want that to happen. So we want to make sure we put this out as far away as possible that our client is comfortable with. So for instance, in Robert's situation, I had him amend his listing agreement to extend till December 31st, because what if it doesn't take the guy 30 or 60 days? What if it takes him 120 days to do the repairs? We want to make sure that we still have it under contract so that we're the ones that get to sell it when they get the work done. So I did listing agreements in June and July last year for properties that did not list until October or November, because I wanted to make sure that when they were ready to sell, that I was the one that got to sell it. So when they told me, well, yeah, we want to sell, but it's going to be fall before we're ready. Well, let's go ahead and get all the paperwork done, right? And then once we get all the paperwork done, we won't have to worry about that later on. And that way I'm secured and I get to have it listed. So we want to make sure we put it as far out as possible. And we want to make sure we cover the full term so nobody else can get in and take the listing away from us. So then we need to put in a list price here. And
Excuse me, I have a question.
Yeah.
So when you do the contract begins at the day of the presentation or the day they say they want to list it?
I do it the day of the presentation, so nobody else can get in and do anything in between. If they said they wanted to list it in 30 days, and I put the date here that the contract begins in 30 days, what happens for that 30 days if they change their mind and they want to use a different realtor?
They could do that. Okay, so after you do the presentation, isn't it 2 days you have to put it in the MLS or put something
Well, we're
up?
going to take care of that in the further conditions.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So yeah, hang tight for just a minute. So we're going to put the date that we're signing it here. And then in further conditions, we're going to say what the list date is. Okay.
Okay.
So this is the contract begin date. It's not the list date. Okay.
Oh.
All right. So then we're going to put the list price in, right? And we're going to say whether it's by general warranty deed or if it's going to be a personal representatives or trustees deed, we need to put that in here, right? Because we have to or a special warranty deed, we have to make sure that we also put that in the multiple listing service so that the buyers know they're not getting a general warranty deed that's warranting the entire chain of title. So we need to make sure we put that in here. And then we also want to ask this question: did the seller acquire the property at a tax sale, sheriff's sale, judicial sale, or a mortgage foreclosure proceeding? Why is this important?
Make sure ain't no liens on it.
Well, yes, exactly. But if they bought it at tax sale, sheriff's sale, judicial sale, or mortgage foreclosure proceeding, what kind of deed do they hold? They hold a special warranty deed, right? They order something that is they can't. They likewise, just like if it's an executor's deed, they can't do a general warranty deed because they don't have a general warranty deed that's warranting all the way the entire chain of title. Right? Remember when you were in class and we talked about the deeds and the chains of title and what it was? So this is how we let the buyers know what they're buying, right? So we have to put that in there. We also need to know this because if it's a flip and we're going to make it we want to have this conversation with the seller, because if it was a flip, like Robert's talking about, remember FHA has some rules about the flip. right? They have flip rules, and we need to make sure we know about that too. Then we have to deal with the fact if it's a foreign person and whether they're subject to foreign investment and real estate, real property tax act. So we need to ask that question. And then we're going to decide what kind of financing that the seller is going to accept buyers that have this particular kind of financing. And we've talked about this a lot, but you guys know what you explained to your sellers about FHA and VA, right? What do you explain? Somebody tell me, what do you explain about FHA and VA to your sellers? If it's an FHA or a VA lender, what happens at the appraisal?
They have to pass certain things like the roof, furnace, water heater, like the major components still have to make sure that I think they have at least 5 years life in them.
Plus, if there's peeling paint or anything else, the appraiser has discretion to require repairs or replacement even after the inspection period has been passed and fully negotiated and that contingency has been cleared. So even though the buyer doesn't require any repairs from the seller, the appraiser can require repairs, right? So we need to make sure that our sellers know that. And if you walk up to a house and there is peeling paint on every window, you probably don't want to make that FHA unless they're willing to scrape and paint all the window trim, right? Because that's going to show up every time. Well, not every time, but most times. All right. So do you know what the other ones are? What is a conditional sales contract?
Buying on contract.
It's a land contract, right? So that's where the seller becomes basically the lender. That's a land contract. What is, we know what a conventional mortgage is. Do you know what an insured conventional mortgage is?
Carries PMI.
Yeah, PMI, right. So, and then assumption of existing mortgage balance. We haven't seen those for a long time, right? But don't you think in the future with these mortgages at 2% interest, 2.5% interest, that we're going to see some assumptions later on down the line being a potential selling factor when the market shifts and it's now a buyer's market? So that's just an interesting one. We wouldn't mark that right now because probably the mortgage is not assumable, and nor would probably anybody want to assume it because they can get a better deal otherwise.
What does that mean?
What?
Assumption of existing mortgage balance.
An assumed mortgage. So
Yeah.
I have a mortgage and you just replace me on the mortgage. So the buyer replaces the seller on the mortgage.
Oh, okay.
They assume the mortgage. They assume, and they get to assume all the terms of it as well.
Okay.
All right. So then a seller agrees to pay costs associated with financing not to exceed blank US dollars. Again, this isn't something that we're doing right now, but when the market shifts and it's a buyer's market, then that's the conversation we'll have with sellers, right? In order to make your home more, you know, when the sellers are competing for buyers, right? Right now, the buyers are competing for sellers. So for homes, so we don't have to fill that in. So we usually make that 0 or NA, right? I recommend that in any, Anne probably is going to jump in here and agree with me as well. I don't like contracts with blank lines because there's ambiguity there that if it ever gets litigated, the ambiguity goes in favor of the person that didn't write the contract. So I recommend that if there's a blank line, you put NA because it's not applicable, or you're purposely leaving it blank. So I would definitely say you either put 0 here or you put NA here. All right. So the above list price includes a property and all improvements and fixtures permanently installed. And so we need to have that conversation with our sellers, right? You know, we need to make sure they understand that everything that's permanently installed has to stay. So if Aunt Susie's chandelier in the dining room, if Aunt Susie's chandelier in the dining room is a family heirloom and they want to take that with them, what do we advise them?
Put it in the contract as an exclusion.
Yeah, or replace it out, right? Let's take it down now and put in a different light fixture, right? Let's just do one or the other. So we need to be very specific here. And we also need to do the same thing with the appliances. We need to be very specific, and we need to be very pointed in asking. We should never make assumptions when it comes to these items.
And one big thing is also your wall TV mounts.
Yes. The wall, so that's the stupidest thing ever. Because they don't match all TVs, right? But your brackets for mounting the TV on the wall have to stay unless you purposely exclude them.
Mhm.
Okay, so this is a good time for us to explain to the client that they're going to be required to remove all their debris and all their personal property at sale, right? So if it's not one of the appliances or one of the fixtures that's permanently attached, they have to take it with them. Angie Brown recently had an issue where she sold a property. Her clients moved out, left a whole bunch of stuff behind. The buyers didn't give them a chance to come move it out. They hired somebody to come move it out, and they sent them a bill for the cost of removing all of that debris and stuff. So personal property items they left behind. So we want to make sure that we include that. Here's the thing. If you ever list a house and it has a pool table in the basement, you need to ask specifically, are they taking the pool table in the basement? And they might likely tell you no, because they had a horrible time getting it down there and they're not going to take it with them because they don't want to get that slate back out. You're going to have to include that in the sale, and you need to say that the pool table is not going to be removed, right? So you don't have a problem down the line. All right. Let's see. So it's an exclusive listing. This is where we want to explain to the clients. Pretty simple, right? This is a pretty easy thing to explain. We just say, so here's the thing. Now that you're listing with me, you can't list with anybody else because there can only be one sign in your yard, right? So that's just the easy way to say that. And so when we get down to line 49, this is the safety clause in the purchase agreement, right? So this is where if we get to 2 days before the listing expires and a buyer comes through the home and decides they want to offer on it, our listing is expired, right? But we have the safety clause in there. So I usually put 180 days here. This way, any buyer that came while I had it under listing agreement, if any of those buyers actually are the ones that purchased the home, I still earn my commission. Does anybody have a question on the safety clause?
Yes, can you say that again and explain it? Because I don't know really what it is.
It's the same as what we have with the buyer, right? So in our exclusive buyer's agency agreement, we have the same provision. So if we list this property and the listing expires on March 31st, and on March 29th, the buyer comes through and sees the property and they make an offer on April 2nd, our listing agreement has expired. But if we have line 49 filled out, we still get our commission, because this is what the safety clause says. It says that because they saw it while the listing agreement was in place, we still, the contract still holds valid for that buyer. If we didn't have something on this line, then in that case, we wouldn't be entitled to a commission.
How do you prove it?
Well, I don't know. I mean, you would have to go back, and showing time would show you when they saw it, right?
Yeah, but I mean, would you go back on all of them and research that, or, I mean, should we?
Well, hopefully you have a good enough relationship with your seller that if the property expires for some, or if the listing contract expires for some reason, you're either gonna, you're either gonna get it renewed, or not very often do we have listings that expire, do we? Especially not in this market. So yeah, if I had a listing expire and I knew that there was a buyer that was interested, I would definitely probably be checking. Okay, so line 58. Well, this says that if something happens and the seller doesn't pay their commission, that there's going to be an interest applied until they pay. Now, when I present this to my buyer or to my sellers, I always say this. This is just one of those attorney things in here, because this isn't going to happen. We're not going to have a problem, but I have to fill it in. My broker requires it. And by the way, I usually put 18% here. But here's the thing. So this is what happens if the seller changes their mind. So if you go under contract and the seller decides not to sell, do you still get your commission?
That's a good question. I've been wondering that.
I don't think so.
Yes, you do.
Oh, you do?
You bring a ready, willing buyer that could go through with the transaction and your seller backs out the day before closing. The buyer's ready to go. They could have closed. You still earn your commission. Then you're probably going to have to litigate it. And that's where the 18% comes in. That's where line 58 comes in. If you have your property listed and they decide they're going to go sell it to their brother, and they go down that path and they don't even tell you until after it's closed, and they say, oh, you got to take it off the market because I already sold it to my brother. Do you get paid? Yes, because you have an exclusive listing agreement. So anybody that buys it, you get a commission. You're probably going to have to litigate it. And that's where line 58 comes in. So we want to make sure we fill that in and we make it fairly punitive, although the court won't allow it to be 100% or anything like that. 18% is just a normal legal interest rate. So that's what I usually put in there. And then, line 63 is just letting the seller know that what you and I negotiate here as far as the commission rate, it's not in any way, set in stone. So we get to negotiate that. And this is where I always say, so my personal script here is that, so here's what I want to know from you. We talked a little bit about all of the marketing and the custom photographs and everything. So I have pretty much a range, and my range is 7, 6.5, and 6. Now remember, I have to pay the buyer's agent out of that. Would you like the 7%, the 6.5, or the 6? And then whatever they tell me, then I write it down. Anybody have any comments on that?
I do. What is the catch? Because they're always going to pick the 6%. How do you get them to choose?
They are not always going to pick the 6%.
Why?
Well, a lot of people always pick the middle number. A lot of people say, well, what's going to happen with the 7? Well, on the 7, I'm going to pull out all the stops. I'm going to get a video. I'm going to do all of this. They'll go, oh, well, I want that. And they'll pick 7. Most of the time they pick 6. But Ian, let's just assume you're right for a minute. If we gave them a choice and they picked 6, what are they thinking?
That they're getting to choose how much they pay you.
Yes, exactly. They got to choose. Is 4.5 or 5 an option then?
No.
They're thinking they got a deal.
Yes.
Yep.
Right. That's why that's my script. You can come up with your own script however you want to present it. Some agents just put 6 in there. You can listen to what Becky does. Hers is in that presentation video that's out there on Indie Metro PC. I'm also going to have Rhonda and Shauna, maybe next Saturday, I'm working on this, to come do Shauna's listing presentation for you guys, which is absolutely amazing. But yeah, give them a choice. That's what I do. All right. So line 70 over here where it says the 7% of the selling exchange price, right? So that's whatever they say there, whatever that's going to be, but not less than blank. And this is where I usually put in NA here. And why you would put this in here is, let's say you were working with an investor and the home you were listing was $20,000. That's the list price, right? Well, you might say to this investor, I might say to this investor, I'm happy to list this for you. However, I am not interested in earning less than $1,000, right? So I could put in a minimum number here. Just like you do in your buyer's agreement. You have this provision in your buyer's agreement as well. All right, in the event of a purchase option, the seller agrees to compensate broker a blank percentage of the consideration paid for the option to purchase. Well, they're probably not going to be accepting an offer to purchase, so you can probably just put an NA here. Does everybody know what an option to purchase is?
No.
It means that I'm going to pay a certain amount so that if you decide to sell it, I get an option. I get the option to move forward. Right. So that would be, you would get a percentage of that option price. That usually only happens in commercial properties. So you're most likely going to put an NA there. But although if somebody called you and said, hey, my brother wants to buy my property if I ever sell it, and he wants a formal option, would you draft that up for me? Well, that would be a listing agreement, and that's the line that you would fill out for that. And you would get paid a percentage of that just for doing that agreement. In the event of a lease, okay, so if this is going to be a leased property, then you're going to fill this in. If not, you're going to put NA. And then other, you know, I put NA there.
So quick question about the lease option. If I'm like a rental or whatever, is the commission still the same then?
Well, it's negotiated, so it's same in that regard. Typically, when you see the commission rate in the BLC for rentals, it says 10%, and that's 10% of the first month's rent.
Gotcha.
So if it's $1,000 a month, then you're going to make $100.
Gotcha. Okay. And I'm assuming that's paid by the rental property or whomever is leasing it.
It's paid by the landlord pays that.
Okay. Thank you.
That's why you'll see I'm not a huge fan of those. I know sometimes we have to do them to pay the bills, but it is definitely falls into that category of stepping over dollars to get to dimes, because we wouldn't ever want to replace our lead generation time with working with leased properties for sure. All right. And then 78, 79, we're letting them know that we have to give part of that commission to the buyer's agent, right? So we figure out what that is. Remember, it has to be at least 3%, or you have to have a conversation with your broker if it needs to be less than 3%. And get permission first. And then the rest of this, we don't have anything to fill out, but we need to let them know that if something happened and they didn't actually pay the commission that was earned, that there would be attorney fees added at the end. And that's not, I always say, and that's not ever an issue because we're not going to have a problem, but I want to make sure you know that. The earnest money, this says that the broker is authorized to accept the earnest money. If the seller really wants the earnest money at the title company, you're going to write that in further conditions to adjust that. The listing service, this is just to let them know it's going to be in the multiple listing service, that they have an obligation to fill out the seller's residential, the disclosure form. And this is where we have to have a serious conversation about the disclosure form, and we want to make sure that they disclose anything and everything that's wrong with the home. Most particularly if there are any windows that have broken thermal panes, we make sure that they note them on there. If there's mold, if there's water in the basement, we want to make sure they say anything and everything, and we need to explain to them why. We need to tell them that we are not an expert in environmental contaminants, and that if there's any concern about that, they should probably get a professional to come in. We're going to explain to them that they have to sign an office policy, and we need to make sure that we've had the agency conversation with them so they know what's going to happen if a buyer calls on the sign, if that buyer wants us to represent them, how that works. So we need to make sure we have that conversation with them. We also need to have a conversation with them as what happens if another Keller Williams agent brings a buyer. So we need to make sure we're having that conversation with them. And then we just tell them what we expect from the seller. So this, you guys can read this, it goes through, but down here, 174, seller authorizes its utility companies to divulge all utility information. You can fill this in. If you get there and they don't know or they don't have it, they can get it to you later. And you can still sign the listing agreement and not have this filled in. Okay, this is just information section. Same thing with the HOA. You are going to need to know the HOA, and you have to make sure that you have to, you're going to have to provide copies of the covenants and restrictions to the buyer. So you want to make sure you get those. So you need to know who the HOA management is. And I got to tell you, just because you go to Chicago Title or somewhere and get the CCRs, that does not guarantee that is the most current version. You still, as the listing agent, need to call the HOA and make sure you have the most current CCRs, right? Because you don't want, if they changed it 6 months ago to say you can't have rental properties and the buyer is an investor planning on renting it, it's going to be a problem if you didn't provide them with the most recent covenants and restrictions. So you need to make sure you have the most current. And that's your job as the listing agent to get that, or have the seller get it. I mean, you can ask your seller to get it for you. In some cases, I had one where my seller was actually the treasurer of the HOA. So she got the CCRs for me. We need to know who the mortgage company is, right? Because the title company is going to need that to be able to find out what the payoff is. I have no idea why anyone in their right mind on line 189 would ever mark does not. It says the seller does or does not authorize broker to disclose the existence of written offers to buyer. If seller has authorized disclosure of existence of offers on the property, broker shall also disclose if asked whether offers were obtained by the listing licensee, another licensee in the listing firm, or by a cooperating broker. Why would anybody not want us to tell other buyers that we had offers so that we got multiple offers so that we get best and final? I don't know why anybody would ever mark that. It's really a weird thing. Whether the seller is offering a home warranty, we just need to know that. We need to know if they're authorizing that we put a lockbox on. And we need to talk to them about a lockbox and how that works out. And what happens if showing time can't get a hold of them to authorize? Are they allowed to still send someone or not? We just need to have that conversation. We need to find out if they need to have any restrictions when showings occur. We need to have a conversation with them about recordings and find out if they have a recording device. We need to make sure we talk to them about fair housing. I always say this, we aren't allowed to decide who your buyer can be based on their last name or anything else, right? We don't get to decide who that is, only based on price and terms that they're offering. And then there's just some additional attorney things down here. If your seller is a licensed agent or is in referral, you need to make sure you put their license number here. We have to disclose that. Remember, that's part of our requirement. And we always want to have the wire fraud conversation. Now, in further conditions, this is where you're going to add some things. In further conditions, you're going to add the list date, right? So Keisha asked the question earlier about that date on the front. Well, we want to make sure we're under contract with them. That's the contract date, but that's not the list date. And we have 48 hours after the list date in order to get it in the multiple listing service. So we want to identify when the list date is. If the seller is not sure when they want to list, I put this. I put the list date will be within 48 hours after professional photographs are ordered and obtained, right? So that gives me a little bit of time, and it pushes it out to an undetermined date because it doesn't say when we have to order the photographs. So that could just be however long it takes. You can also put list date will be as determined by seller within the next 90 days or whatever. You just need to put something in here that's specific to what it is. And just remember that under the MIBOR rules, once you've done this, you are not allowed to market at that property except for internally, right? So you aren't allowed to do a coming soon or anything for an extended period of time while the seller gets the house ready to sell. Other things that you might put in here, we talked about this earlier, is things that are excluded, right? So anything that's going to be excluded from the sale. What else might we put in further conditions? Can you think of anything?
I just have a question. What if they put in a listing date and then it changes later on?
Do an amendment.
Amendment? Okay.
There's an amendment. Another thing you might put in further conditions is if there are pets in the house and there's a specific thing that the seller is really concerned about with the pet, you would just go ahead and write that in the further conditions. That way they feel really comfortable, right?
I got a question.
Yes, Robert.
What if we got a seller who's like, well, no, I really don't want nobody to, like, they're an investor and they're like, well, I don't want nobody to come in the home to view it. I just want them to purchase it without being able to look at it. And it's like an investment home. How do you go about talking to the investor about that?
Talking to the investor to talk them out of that, or?
No, like they don't want nobody like going in and view, because most people want to go in and see the home and view the home or whatever.
There's a form for that, right? So there's a form. There's a form that is in your multiple listing service that you would just require that for all the offers, so that they would say that they have to make an offer. You see this with properties that have tenants in it a lot. They say that you're not allowed to view the property until after you've made an offer. So there's a form for that in the IAR library that is basically a sight unseen offer, and it gives you that extra contingency that you can withdraw within like 48 hours after you see the property.
Oh, okay.
And if you represent the investor that wants that, I would write that in further conditions or on an addendum. Always remember the difference between an amendment and an addendum. What's the difference between an amendment and an addendum?
Addendum is something that you're gonna add that's extra, and amendment is like when you're gonna change something that's already there.
Exactly. Exactly. All right. Was this helpful today? You like the seller net sheets? You like going through the purchase or the listing agreement?
Yeah, that was very helpful.
All right. So now can we get our listing presentations put together and start practicing them? Don't forget, Becky's got those videos. They're on the Indy Metro PC under instructional videos, both the listing presentation and then how she walks a client through what we just walked through is on there as well. So I highly recommend that you watch it and you practice. Go practice a listing, right? Go practice a listing. You know, Jay, practice selling your house. Practice doing a listing presentation with your wife.
Think it'd be okay if I put the for sale signs in the yard? Not for sale. I mean, just to like to get my neighbors to, you know.
Advertise.
If you
Yeah,
put a sign in your yard, you have to get it in the MLS within 48 hours. You can't just put a sign in your yard for sale.
Mm.
You could get a different kind of sign that didn't indicate that the house was for sale, but you can't actually put a sign in your yard saying it's for sale.
Be glad to list your house for
I
you.
mean, I can still put the sign in the yard, just not the for sale part on there, right?
You know what? I'm gonna punt on that. I'm gonna tell you that you need to call the broker hotline and ask that question.
I was sitting there thinking about that when we was talking about the listing. I was like, well, if I just put my sign out there with my face on there, it doesn't mean it's for sale. It's just a sign in the yard.
Right. Although if it's a business sign, it probably, you probably have some either HOA or zoning violations. I don't know. I would just recommend, that's not my lane. You're going to have to ask somebody else that question. I will tell you, a lot of people punk people on April Fool's Day.
Okay.
I do know an agent that will post signs, at the entrances to neighborhoods, like there's an open house in the neighborhood. And she didn't do open house 10 to 4, but she'll hang the signs out there all around town.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm gonna punt. I'm gonna punt and say you're just gonna have to talk to a broker about that. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm gonna call the broker hotline about that because I think that's a pretty good.
Hey, one thing I want to tell you guys about the broker hotline. I had this conversation. Robert said he was having a hard time getting people to answer the broker hotline. If you call the broker hotline and you do not get an answer, you have to leave a message because they don't have a caller ID tracking. So they don't know that you called. Now, it could be the reason why they couldn't answer is because they're on the phone with another agent, or maybe they are working with someone somehow. It's not that they're not taking care of you. It's just that at the current moment, they can't take your call, but they're going to call you that same day, but you have to leave a message, right? So leave a message, leave your name, your phone number, and generally what you're calling about, and they are going to call you back as quickly as they are available. There's a whole group of them that are managing brokers, and they are on a rotating call schedule, and the call just gets routed to them. But it only comes up and lets them know that it's a broker hotline call. It does not come up and tell them who you are. So they can't, there's no way for them to know that you called unless you leave a message.
Yeah, I've left a few messages with them and they've called me back. And then a couple of times I just called them back a few minutes later and I've gotten someone.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so definitely use that as a resource. And remember, that is your broker question. That's not a how do I do command, right? That's me. That's open office hours, 5 to 6, Monday through Thursday, or text me if it's urgent. The broker hotline is for broker questions, right? If you've got something urgent, that's a broker question. Liability, contract, agency, those kind of things. Awesome. Stay warm. Have an awesome weekend. I'm going to be sending some things out. Those of you that are in the 12-week plan, or even if you're not, I think you all are. But if you look at your goals for this week, and if you have gaps, figure out how you're going to fill them. Awesome. Thanks for joining me this morning. Have an awesome day.
Oh, hey, hold on, Carla, hold
Yeah.
on. I have one more thing.
Yes.
I'm gonna say this. We was trying to do the for sale by owner thing yesterday, and our link wouldn't work.
Well, who
So I
set the
said
link up? Armand or?
it was me and Armand. We ended up talking on the phone. We both couldn't get it to work.
Where'd the link come from?
I thought you sent it.
Well, I sent it because Armand gave it to me.
Oh, okay.
So we
Good.
just need to get the links squared away.
Okay. So okay, we'll figure it out. I just wanted to let you know that. Just in
I mean,
case
I can set up a link. I just have to figure out how to get it started without me having to start it. Well, and I can't do it on Friday mornings because I use my Zoom,
Well, I
right?
think
I have coaching calls on Friday mornings, so I can't use my Zoom. So you need to get your own Zoom in order to make that work.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Either me or Armand will figure out how to do our own Zoom. So
yeah, then just send me the link, and then I can include it on the at a glance thing every week.
Okay.
All right.
Hey, Carla, I have one more really quick, easy question. So I was trying to add some addresses into command, and you know when you put the address in, it gives you that drop down. You have choices. It's not on the drop down, and there's no way for me to add, like edit it or whatever.
It will give you like a manual entry.
Okay, I couldn't find that, but I'll look again.
Well, you just keep trying. Like, so take the number out then. So if you're trying to put in 123 Main Street and it's not coming up, then get rid of the 123 and just put in Main Street. Like Jay and I just had to do this the other day because he's got a new build that doesn't have, the address doesn't exist yet. Right.
Okay.
So you just have to keep playing with it until you get the manual entry to come up.
Okay. And it's out in the country. You know, I know it's, it's out in the boonies. So I'll try that. Okay. Thank you.
If you have any problems Monday, pop on with your screen open and we'll figure it out.
Okay.
Awesome. All right. Have a fabulous weekend.
Thanks.